welcome back to another episode of The Push, presented by Nick and KP. I am KP, I have Nick with me, and we are ready to go here with some WrestleMania predictions. So we're going to be doing night one in this particular video right here, right now. We're going to be discussing everything that's going to be taking place on the first night, as far as we're aware. Go through all the matches, who we think are going to win, what we think is going to happen, giving them the lowdown, and basically just seeing, getting a little taste of all the WrestleMania action that's going to come on the Saturday night from Philadelphia. So let's dive straight into the predictions, the discussion, the theories, everything involved with night one. We'll be talking about a 6-woman tag team match that features Bianca Belair, Naomi, and a debuting, I suppose you can say, outside of the Rumble, Jade Cargill. They're all going to be teaming up to take on Damage Control's Asuka, Kairi Sane of the Kabuki Warriors, and then obviously Dakota Kai as well is going to be rounding off the group of Damage Control. Io Sky has other agendas to focus on throughout the weekend, so we won't be talking about that for the moment. But yeah, these 6 women going up against each other, 6-woman tag team match. Let's talk about it. So, you talk about the dynamic for this one. Damage Control have been tearing apart the women's division on SmackDown, as they have been. They are, they're the top women there. They want to be the top women anyway. That's what their agenda is. And they've been basically making themselves known to be the badasses. So no one gets past them. They're the women in control, and nothing gets past them. So you've got this group that are challenging them, basically trying to assert their dominance, trying to rise up to the challenge to face the Kabuki Warriors and Dakota Kai. And it's this little strange dynamic here. So you've got 3 very different people in this one on the challenging team, or the face team, whatever you want to call those 3 on the left-hand side of the screen, as you can see in the picture. Very different ways of coming into this match. Naomi, very confident, very upfront in the build-up, saying that she wants to take it to these 3. She wants to get in Damage Control's business, and that she ain't taking it. She's been away for a while, and she wants to stand up for herself and what she believes in. You got Bianca Belair, who's been not quite the same mindset regarding that. So she's been very much a case of coming into this match, not really wanting to get involved in Damage Control's business again. She's been there. She's done that. She's already had altercations with Damage Control throughout the past 2 years or so, especially with Bayley, and she didn't really want it. But she felt sorry for Naomi and would come and obviously try and protect her, try and save her from the situation. Then you've got the 3rd member, and I would like to have a decent conversation about this with you, Nick. So Jade Cargill in this matchup, obviously her first involvement since being in the Royal Rumble. How do you think her mindset is going into this one? So we've only really seen, I think it's been this past Friday, where we've actually seen her take the initiative of coming into the situation. So where do you think her mindset is at right now? What do you think she's thinking, and what do you think are her thoughts going into this type of matchup?
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see her added to this match. I guess it's another situation similar to the Rumble to get her in, make her look as good as possible, without any chances of exposure, which kind of seems like that's the route they've been running. I do feel like that, I don't know. I guess I thought she seems like her personality type strikes me as a heel more. I haven't watched her stuff in AEW, but I do feel like she has a heel personality based on her persona. So based on that, I guess I'm thinking that she's probably not going to get, and the idea of a 6-woman tag match here is to make her look as good as possible, which I don't know how you can top the Rumble, but we'll give it a shot here. And I also feel like Bianca has some definite heel attitude. I think we've mentioned that on a prior video or two. It feels like she's on the verge. So I feel like probably the most likely scenario is, then the obvious answer seems that Bianca, Naomi, and Jade would come out on top here. Because if they don't, then Jade's momentum is already going in the wrong direction. One exception to that rule, I would say, was maybe if we see some sort of heel turn. Like I mentioned, I feel like Jade kind of just comes off as a more natural heel, but I also wouldn't rule it against Bianca turning either. Um, with that scenario, you then have Damage Control continue to be booked strong, and then the loss to Jade would not come off as a downward momentum, I guess. That's kind of my first impression of this.
Yeah, you do make some good points there. I think the dynamics are very interesting regarding this one. Like you say about Bianca, I think we're all just waiting for her to really get into this sort of new heel type gimmick that she is. I don't know if she's been teasing as such, but she does, like you said, she seems to have changed a little bit in the mentality. So whether that is deliberate, whether it's just her, getting a bit fed up with things and we're meant to believe that she's just naturally going down that transgression, I don't know. But with Jade Cargill, you made a very good point. Like, she's got that natural sort of confidence, swagger since coming into the business, and she doesn't really give like a face sort of vibe to her. So obviously being on the left hand side of this, not being with Damage Control and standing up to them, she hasn't really said an awful lot going into this one, has she? So I think it's going to be quite interesting once we actually get to know what she is thinking. And yeah, I think a heel, a debut as a heel probably sounds a bit more reasonable coming out from this one, but obviously we'll have to wait and see what happens. If we talk about how we think this one's going to go down, I think you mentioned a little about that a moment ago about why would you give Jade a loss in this type of matchup? Momentum's going to go down the toilet. I agree. I think that this can only really go one way. It has to be Bianca, Naomi, Jade on the winning side here against Damage Control, which I don't really think is a bad thing. I'm very defending of Damage Control over the last couple of years, as we all know. And I think when it comes to this particular match, I don't think they really have much to lose in this particular point. So I think they can take a loss and Jade can obviously, work her way into a big match, her first WrestleMania with a victory. I don't see that to be a particular problem in any sort of scenario.
Yeah, and I pretty much agree. I think it's the right choice, provided there's no sort of turn here. I do have to say it feels a bit rushed and a bit overwhelming to put Jade in this match, just because of how long we've been waiting for it, and then basically we 1 week ahead found out that she was going to be entering. So yeah, a bit underwhelming, but I am excited to see what she can pull off here. And let's be honest, as much as we all love most of these women in this match should be solely about Jade. So we'll see. It should be a good one.
Yeah, excited for sure. And I think, like you said, if she could have had 3 or 4 weeks build up to this one, I think it probably would have just elevated that situation a bit more. But yeah, maybe a tad rushed, but we'll see what happens. Could be a great match. 6 women who I'm sure will tear the house down at some point on the card. So if we turn our attention now to a different matchup, and this one is something that if you had told me a month ago is happening, in fact, it probably was a month ago that this came out. Okay, let's talk about 8 weeks ago then. That this is going to be happening at WrestleMania, I would have been incredibly excited, and I would have been absolutely, tremendously looking forward to this one. I think that when you got Intercontinental Champion Gunther in a matchup, you expect it to be amazing. You expect it to be great. And I'm sure this match will be. I have no doubt about that. I know that Sami Zayn is a top quality performer, one of my personal favorites. And to see him go up against the IC Champion, I think it's going to be a tremendous match. But I'd like to talk about the build up to this one. And honestly, the build has not been it for me. Like, I've just sort of felt a bit. I get the whole premise. They're sort of making it look like Sami's got absolutely no chance, and that he's fighting against his inner demons. His mentality's not there. He's not quite believing in himself. He's been obviously taking the hand of Chad Gable for advice and help and getting him ready for this one. I just really have struggled to enjoy the build up to this one, and it just doesn't. I don't know. It hasn't helped Sami as a challenger, as a credible threat, which I think he is. I think any other build to this match would make him appear to be so. But yeah, what did you think of the build to this one? I really am struggling to get with the vibe of it personally.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Just to the fact that at this day and age, Sami Zayn's career, we shouldn't have to, we shouldn't have to play these kind of mind games. And I don't really feel like Gunther really. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking incorrectly here, but I don't feel like his mindset to this point has been during this reign has been like he's playing mind games all the time. Like yes, he's dominant, but I don't really feel like that's mind games per se. Like a Bray Wyatt level of mind games or anything like that. I mean, he's just dominant, and anyone that has tries to go up against him usually doesn't fare well, or in this case hasn't fared well. But yeah, and the Chad Gable bit at the beginning, I think, kind of just put him behind the eight ball, anyways. You know, in the talk, you can't mention the build to this match without mentioning Chad Gable and how we kind of thought maybe he was going to be put into it. But alas, he wasn't. But he was still there the whole time, talking to him, kind of helping him see the right path. So I don't know. It's weird that Chad Gable was in the build so much if they weren't going to put him in there. The only way I could see that making sense is if Sammy were to win this and then Chad get his chance. But I just don't see that happening. I don't feel like the build has been good. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the match is going to be incredible. The conflicting styles of these two guys, and both of them don't put on bad matches. So I think the match will be good. I think maybe potentially next PLE having to deal with these two plus Chad, maybe. That's the only way I can make sense of the build. But yeah, definitely a bit underwhelming.
I'm glad I'm not the only one to think that, because let's say we live in a day and age now where Sami Zayn, I think a lot of us have spoken about him recently being a possible world title contender, and to see him now in the Intercontinental Championship picture is either you like to see it, or you want him to achieve more by going for that bigger picture. I'm definitely on the latter there, but I know a lot of people don't agree with me, and that's absolutely fine because obviously it's an opinion-based business. But like, I just really, really do think that they should have given him more credit going into this. They just built him to be this complete and utter mess, and I really don't understand it. But yeah, I think the match has so much potential. It could be like up there with the matches of the weekend. It really, really could be, because these guys are that good. So I am looking forward to the matchup. It's just, yeah, like I say, a bit of a downer based on how things have gone into it. But if we talk about the outcome, I think that I probably stand with a lot of people on this one, that we're still going to have Derin General as the IC champion at the end of this. I think Gunther is going to beat Sammy, and that would sort of just, put the cherry on top of the build-up that's essentially gone, Sammy's got no chance. I'm dismissing Sammy's chances very quickly in this, which obviously, the build probably helps that. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't think that Sammy is the right man to take the title off of Gunther. I think that Sammy should go for a world title. And yeah, I mean, he's going to have to put on one hell of a matchup with Gunther to come out looking strong while taking a loss that puts him into a world title picture going forward. I don't know how that's going to happen. I really hope it does, but that's just my general preference and my wanting this from this one.
Yeah, I agree that the reign of Gunther will continue. The only caveat I put on that whole statement about him going for a world title picture is simply that Gunther has elevated this title so much that it doesn't feel like a step down to me, anyways. Um, I think he's done what we've been trying to do for a long time and elevate this IC title. I think he's done it, and I think that's why I don't think it's necessarily a downside to have him in this match. He had his title shot, last fall, I think it was, and he was main eventing at Mania last year for the tag titles. But yeah, I just don't see it ending here. I think the only way Gunther's going to lose at this point is some six man ladder match or something like that, which I kind of thought what they were going to do initially, before they announced all the hype or the build up to it. And I think that's the only way he's going to lose this is by some multi-man match where he doesn't get pinned, because clearly this man's only going one direction, and it's to the top. And I think at this point, even even a diehard Sami fan like you would have to admit Gunther his ceiling is probably a little higher than Sami's at this point.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I think that you made a great point about the title being so prestigious right now. I think I agree. I think it probably is the biggest the IC title has felt, possibly even ever. I don't know. That's a really bold claim. You go back to days of like Macho Man or whatever, who made that title so incredibly prestigious back then. But I think when you're talking now, I think this is the biggest it's been in a hell of a long time. Let's put it that way. So yeah, maybe it's not so much of a step down. I think I'm talking more of like an accolade. Obviously, Sami has been a multi-time Intercontinental champion. I really want him to make that next step. But yeah, I think maybe I'm a bit old school with the sort of like vibe there. But yeah, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I think it's all very valid points. But yeah, I mean, hopefully this match is great. I'm sure it will be. I really hope it is. And yeah, we'll see what goes down for the IC title. But if we do talk about something a little bit different now, we go along to another championship matchup. We have got the Women's World Champion, Mami, Rhea Ripley. She's defending her gold up against Elimination Chamber winner, Becky Lynch. So there was a lot of talk, obviously, at the back of last month going into the Elimination Chamber. You know, who will win? Will it be Liv? Will it be Becky? We got Becky Lynch. She would win that matchup. And I guess kind of like Sami, it's been about Becky battling her inner demons. Can she beat Rhea Ripley? Can she get the job done? Is she good enough to do so? That's been a very large staple of this build. And she's obviously had obstacles in her way. She had to get past Liv Morgan. She had to defeat Nia Jax. Yeah, it hasn't just been your typical, like what we just alluded to a moment ago with Sami and Gunther, where one person just can they get past those obstacles in their head? Can they beat them? Becky's literally had to get over certain people to get to this point and to prove to Rhea Ripley that she's ready. And we've seen a bit more of an intensity rise in the last couple of weeks from Lynch. She's been sort of a bit more aggressive, a bit more as the man, as we know that she can be. And I think this is going to be one of those matches where it's going to go one of two ways, in my opinion. It's going to be as good as it looks on paper, or it's just going to be your typical. Well, it's not typical, but it's going to be a sort of like your middle of the card sort of. It was all right. Maybe sort of like a Bianca Asuka type matchup from last year. But I think this one has a lot of potential. I really, really think it does. And I think when you look at the winner of this one, Rhea's been so incredibly dominant over the last, year? She would defeat Charlotte at last year's WrestleMania. I think anybody who steps up to Rhea Ripley is automatically the underdog no matter who they are at this particular point because of how good she is right now. And I just want to get your thoughts on potential challenges. If Becky loses this one, then what would be the next sort of step regarding that one? Who's next for Rhea Ripley? But I'm not looking past Becky Lynch here, but I'm thinking if that was the case, if Becky was to lose, then what is next sort of thing? So yeah, what's your mindset regarding that sort of agenda on this one?
Yeah, the build has been pretty decent. But yeah, kind of same lines as Sami Zayn. For whatever reason, WWE likes to use that inner demon storyline, and when the next batch of talent comes in after them, it's always I need to prove myself. I feel like Becky kind of uses that one a little too much. But yeah, I think the match should be good. Honestly, I don't give Becky much of a shot to win this. I think this booking, and we've discussed this in the past, I think this booking was solely because so we could get, that WrestleMania, get those casual fans in here for the man versus Mommy. But yeah, I just don't see Becky winning here. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Rhea's similar to Gunther, is just on an all-time high right now, and it doesn't feel like Becky winning here would be the right decision. As far as who would be next, names immediately coming to mind would be Jade. Seeing if we can ride that high based on how her match goes here. Bianca would be another one. I think it's hard. I don't, maybe Tiffany Stratton, but it's hard because the brands don't feel like they always align with what they want to do. But I feel like there are contenders out there. But I feel like the brand split always kind of comes into play, and I don't know how much we abide by that anymore. But yeah, I'm hopeful that the match will be good. I just don't think Rhea's reign ends here.
And I do agree with you. I think that Rhea's reign is going to continue. Like I said, I'm not looking past Becky as such because we know how great and talented she is. But yeah, I really don't think Rhea's ready to lose that title just yet. I still think she's got a bit more of a legacy to go through with the belt. So yeah, I think if it was to end now, wouldn't be quite there. I think she's doing a little bit more with it, but I'm sure there are some bigger names, like you said, like a Bianca or and Jade would be phenomenal. Like getting Jade Cargo in this, in another match going forward would be great. But yeah, talk about this match specifically right here, right now. I think Becky and Rhea does have the potential to main event, a number of PLEs throughout the year, based on who they are, what they've done with the business and whatnot, women's division. Yeah, I think it's good. It should be really, really good. I am looking forward to it. I'm excited for this one. But yeah, I think it's very much a case of I just can't see any scenario where Becky Lynch wins. I think it's got to be Rhea Ripley. So yeah, we're on the same headspace there.
Yeah, and I think another potential candidate would be Liv Morgan. They have that unfinished story there too. I feel like at this point it has to be resolved, whether it includes a title or not. But I think it will.
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? It does make sense because obviously Rhea's at that perch now. So yeah, if we do get Liv Morgan coming in, it has to be for the here and the now. I think for sure. And that revenge tour lasted all of 2 weeks, and then it was cut short, and now it's just Liv's not even on the card. So weird one, that one, but yeah, that could be what's next. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. We'll see what happens after this one. But yeah, let's go on to our next topic of conversation. Next up, we're talking about Yeet versus No Yeet, Jimmy versus Jay, Uso versus Uso. I am really excited for this one. I think it's like, I think you're in one or two minds regarding this. You're either really looking forward to the fact that these two have wanted this match for a number of years. I think if you ask Jay, I think it was his dream match to have growing up into the business, like him against his brother at WrestleMania. It doesn't get much bigger than that. You talk about your Owen Hart and your Bret the Hitman Hart. You talk about Matt Hardy against Jeff Hardy. Like, they are the brother against brother matches that we've had in recent WrestleManias, and this is number 3. This is the 3rd edition of it. And at this point, Jey Uso is probably the biggest that he's been, realistically. Obviously, these two are so known for being with one another that to have them be their own separate stars, their individual stars, Jay is so much bigger at the moment than Jimmy is. And I think that eats up Jimmy inside, right? He's obviously still kicking the heels of the bloodline and, being with Solo and Roman and the final boss. And there's a lot going on there, and he could be overshadowed. But yeah, I think Jay has done so well since being by himself over on Monday Night Raw. Obviously, we've seen him tag up with Cody Rhodes very briefly, with what it turned out to be in the end. But I mean, the popularity levels for Jay are just insane, and obviously the Yeet movement, as you could say, is it's pretty monumental. So I've really been enjoying his character recently. But yeah, this match itself, let's talk about it. I think that this one does have a lot of potential as well. I think it's going to be very sort of like aggressive between the two of them. A lot of animosity here between the two guys, and could we see the classic interference from other bloodline members? I mean, it's almost a guarantee, right? Whenever anybody of the bloodline is involved in a match, you would probably think so. So we can talk about that until the cows come home. But yeah, what do you like? How excited are you for this one? I just want to get your personal opinions regarding this. Are you looking forward to it, or are you a little bit like, it's just that brotherly tradition every 15 years or so?
Yeah, I don't think you can look past. This has to be, the highlight of their career, regardless of what happened. They've wanted this for how long, and however old they are, in the business. I Personally, I'm really looking forward to this match. Probably at least top 5 for me, I think, through both nights. And as you mentioned, the Yeet movement, I personally was not a fan. I didn't think that Jay had the potential to be a main event talent, but I'm glad to admit that I was wrong. Um, and he seems to have every factor you need to be a main event talent. So that being said, I think Jay will end up winning this match, and I hope it's as good as high as my expectations are for this. I hope it lives up to them. But I think Jay clearly winning, I think, seems like the obvious choice here. And yes, I think the bloodline will be around. It wouldn't be a bloodline match without half the members at least. But let's see. Maybe even like Jimmy winning because it's so obvious. It seems so obvious that Jay will. Maybe Jimmy winning to kind of help continue that story. I wouldn't be mad at that either. I don't like to use that a bunch on these predictions, but I feel like this would be one of those scenarios where it could be the case.
I think you're right as well. I can definitely tag into that. No pun intended between these two guys, but yeah, I mean, this can go in a multitude of directions here in terms of the start to the finish. But I think when you talk about the finish, like you said, I think it has to be Jay, right? He's riding high at the moment, and he surprised a lot of people. I agree with you. I wasn't particularly sold on these guys branching into individual stars at first, but I think, yeah, like you said, Jay has done very well for himself. So, yeah, I think Jay just will sort of continue that momentum here, getting a victory against his brother. And, yeah, I think, just sort of like riding that momentum going into Backlash and whatever comes afterwards, I think it's going to be really, really awesome to see. So, yeah, I mean, who knows who's going to get involved? That's one of the joys, or maybe lack of joys of the bloodline. You can never get a traditional one-on-one with nothing else happening. So I don't know. I am excited though. Yeah, like you said, maybe top 5 of the weekend. That's a bold claim. I think it could be though. I genuinely think it could. It's got that much potential. So yeah, very excited for this one for sure. Looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. Yeet or no yeet. Let's move on then. So we've got another topic of conversation. This is the 6-pack ladder match for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. And when you look at this one, you think, there's a lot of guys here. This is a big old ladder match, And I am very intrigued by this one. So obviously you've got both sets of titles on the line here. And you've got 6 tag teams. You've got Judgment Day, who are obviously the reigning champions. You've got New Day, Kofi and Xavier. You've got DIY's Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. You've got The Miz and R-Truth. Throwing it back to 2012 or whatever it was, 2010, I can't remember now. Might even be a bit earlier than that. You've got Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, and you've also got New Cat Republics, Tyler Bate, and Pete Dunne. Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to his name change. I love it as well. I love the fact he's gone back to it. But yeah, a lot of guys in this one. This match is going to be pure carnage, right? You just look at it, you think this could be chaos. You got all these names in this one, and you got to grab the championships hanging above the ring after climbing up a ladder. Like, there's going to be a lot of devastation throughout. To keep these many people down so you can grab the titles is going to be quite a challenge. I think it does offer a very interesting dynamic going into it. So yeah, so many guys, so many names, and 2 sets of titles hanging above the ring. So how about we get into a little bit of conversation regarding this one? So very, very interesting topic of conversation here. You've got Raw and SmackDown titles on the line. I'd like to know if you think, I'm not necessarily looking for winners here, but do you think that there's a possibility here that we're going to be getting 2 winners of the match? So do you think that one team will grab like one belt and at the same time another team will grab the other belts? Do you think that's within the realms of possibility here? Or am I sort of like fantasizing and maybe getting a bit too into the depths here? What do you think is going to go down regarding that?
Yeah, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've seen any official rules on how that's going to take place. I know that they announced that they would be both tag teams would be on the line, but I don't know if one team is able to grab them all. Will they be in the same spot, or will they be in separate parts of the ring? Is that even possible? These are all kind of questions that I had. I think it would be best to only allow one title per team, as we've been harping that for I don't know how long, to get these belts separated or unify them or whatever. Carry around 2 titles for at least it's been a year, because last year, that's when Sammy and KO got them, right? But I know it's been longer than that, because I think the Usos were the ones that originally grabbed them both. But anyway, long overdue. I'm hopeful that we get 2 new, or maybe not 2 new, but 2 title holders out of this. That's my hope. The actual match I'm really excited for. You can't go wrong with 6 tag teams in a single match, and then you put ladders in it. What could go wrong, right?
It's going to be great. It's going to be such a fun match. Like, I think if you talk about like your chaos and your craziness, this has got to be up there for the weekend for sure. But Michael Cole said something very interesting on commentary this Monday. He said the match will continue until both sets of titles have been retrieved above the ring. So, I mean, just the way he worded it there, it does sound like that a team can grab one set of belts and the match won't end immediately. So they could probably be classed the champions, perhaps, of that particular belt. Obviously, this is very much speculation. We haven't been told any details regarding that. But just the way he said it, like, until both sets of titles have been retrieved, like, you don't have to grab just one. So that, to me, does maybe think, one team could grab one, and then another team could grab the others. Or even, the same team could grab both. I hope that doesn't happen. We, like you said, wanting the titles to be split for so damn long. I mean, you've got tag teams from main roster who are going down to NXT, and they've been doing that for a little while now. So I think you got your Luke Gallows, your Carl Anderson of the OC. They've been on NXT. You've got your LWO, Raul and Joaquin. Cruz and Joaquin. They've been down on NXT recently as well, sort of like help building up that situation. And I think, if you have titles on both rosters, on both brands for the main roster, do you really need to send your teams down to NXT so often? I don't know if you do. So I think, there's a lot of scope there for these teams to be back into the main roster picture. And I would love to see that. I really, really would. But if we talk about winners here, what are you going with? So what's your genuine opinion here? Do you think we're going to have one winner? If so, who's it going to be? Do you think we're going to have 2 winners? If so, who do you think they're going to be?
Again, I'm hopeful that we have 2 winners. And based on that, I would say that Judgment Day retains their Raw titles. And then the SmackDown titles would go to New Catch Republic. That would be my hopes. I think that makes the most sense. The rest of the teams and DIY, excuse me, I think definitely is worthy of gaining championship belt as well. But I just feel like because they're also on Raw, that I think it makes more sense to keep them with Judgment Day. And then the rest of the teams just kind of seem to be there, and I don't feel like they would make worthwhile champions at this point. But yeah, that's my thoughts on how I think it'll go. If it were to go just to one team again, then I think probably best to keep it with the Judgment Day to keep them riding high.
Fair enough. I can understand that. I'm going to remain hopeful here. So I'm going to just say that it is going to be separated, that we're going to get a winner from both brands. Immediately, you go into those sort of situations, you think, well, there's only 2 SmackDown teams here, so, it can only be one of those 2. And I guess that probably is going to be the situation here, unfortunately. So I'm going to go with, from think the winners are going to be New Catch Republic. So I'm going to agree with you on that. From Monday Night Raw, I think this is where the split really comes in my opinion, because I can see them doing something like this. So I can see R-Truth being like the only guy in sort of any conscious at this point, like in the match, like really deep in towards the end. And I can see him climbing the ladder and him just grabbing the Raw tag team titles and then just climbing back down. No one's literally challenged him to do so. And I can just see him go up to the Miz and say, we won. And like just holding the Raw tag team titles. And the Miz is just like, what are you doing? We can grab both. And he's like, nah, we're on Raw. And I can see something comical coming from that situation. So, yeah, I can see, them going in like that sort of route, perhaps. And then maybe, there's a bit of a scrap then for the other tag team titles. And obviously, from what I said, ultimately that would end with Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne grabbing the other ones. But yeah, I'm gonna go with something like that. Maybe a comical sketch between R-Truth and the titles. Just thinking that he can only grab one instead of the whole package, which then obviously allows the split to happen. So yeah, that's my thought of opinions there.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be mad at Awesome Truth winning either. I think R-Truth deserves some gold, even though he is the 24/7 all-time champion. I think I think his momentum also earns him some gold as well. And if we can get titles on New Catch Republic as well, I think they're just the most deserving and have the most momentum out of all of these. Followed closely by DIY, I think.
And DIY are great. I think if I could pick my winner no matter what brand, I'd probably go with them as the other tag team title holders. But yeah, I think this is definitely one of those ones that could go a number of ways, and I'm just excited to see how this one goes. So yeah, carnage, chaos, potential of a split. There are a lot of good things that could happen from this, and that fills me with a lot of happiness. All right, so we have our next topic of conversation now. Moving on to the next match, we have a tag team contest. So we have got Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee representing the LWO taking on Santos Escobar of Legado del Fantasma and Dirty Dominic Mysterio of Judgment Day. And I think you mentioned earlier that Jade Cargill's involvement felt a little bit rushed in that match. This match seemed to just come out of freaking nowhere last week, right? Like, wasn't really expecting anything like this, and then suddenly it just sort of like comes to a head. Dom comes out to interfere in Rey's match against Santos, and suddenly we've got Dom against Rey at WrestleMania again. Like, I don't know, I just genuinely didn't see that one coming until it actually happened there and then. I thought we were going to get something sort of Rey against Santos type match, but now we've got Dragon Lee in there as well, instead of like a Carlito who was already in LWO. Again, very odd situation, but yeah, it just seems this one's been, I don't know, like thrown together last minute just to try and make some sort of sense. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's going to be a bad thing, but it has felt a little bit odd. The fact that I just genuinely had no idea, and then suddenly it's like, oh, hello, this is what we're going to be getting between these four guys. So I was like, all right, okay. But I mean, this should be a lot of fun to watch. I mean, you think about it as all four individuals. You've got arguably the greatest luchador of all time, Rey Mysterio. You've got the guy who thinks he's the greatest luchador of all time, Dominic Mysterio. You've got the future of lucha wrestling, proclaimed by Rey Mysterio, Dragon Lee. And then you got Santos Escobar, who thinks he's the future of lucha wrestling. So like, there's a whole lot of lucha in this, and I think it makes for a really fun dynamic in the matchup. So you got so many different personalities. You got Honor up against, just pure dickishness, I guess you could say, pure aggressiveness, whatever you want to call it, and four heads coming together here. I think this should be quite an entertaining matchup. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think of the build up to this one? Do you think it was a little bit sort of like, like I said a moment ago, or have you quite enjoyed how this one's gone down?
Yeah, believe it or not, and this happens quite a bit with us, but I feel like, yeah, my exact first thoughts when you switched over to the slide was I was going to reference the Jade Cargill buildup, but just and honestly, I would put it below that in terms of build, just because they were building the damage control and Bianca and Naomi somewhat, so it was kind of there. Whereas with this one, like, our feud has been recently, it had been LWO versus Legado del Fantasma. So part of that's here, but where did Dom come in the picture? I mean, okay. I think it would have made more sense to me, because Dom had been talking with Andrade, and so seeming like they're maybe wanting to add him to the Judgment Day or something. So it's like if Dom was going to tag with anybody, you would think it would be him, um, or just do LDF versus LWO. You know, that makes more sense to me than this. But yeah, that being said, I don't think the match will be bad. I just, yeah, the build up and WrestleMania is supposed to be, we have 2 months worth of build. It's supposed to be the time, the PLE of the year where we have good builds and that sort of thing. And just have two of these on the first night is strange. But again, I don't think the match will be bad. Look at the talent in the ring. It's just an odd choice. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they'll show us what they were trying to work for tonight or after this. But yeah, definitely a strange build. Definitely a strange build.
Yeah, I'm glad you see it too. I was really taken aback by it and surprised by it because I was just like, wow, like it's not anything that I thought it was going to be in that build up. I was convinced it was going to be, like you said, LDF against LWO. That would have been, it felt like it was there for that. So now that's obviously not the situation we've gone in this route. It's like, whoa, okay, sure, why not? Whilst we're here. But yeah, if I'm going to pick winners out of this one, I mean, you had Ray beat Dom last year, and I think that was, fair enough. I think that worked at the time. I mean, you bring Dragon Lee into the situation. You had Dragon Lee lose to Santos Escobar a number of months ago at Survivor Series. He was a last-minute replacement for Carlito, who couldn't make that appearance. So, I mean, you could put a big asterisk against that one. But Ray losing to Santos literally a couple of weeks ago via Dom's help and distraction. I mean, there are so many ifs and buts and, whatever's going into this one. It's hard to say like a definite winner because there's been a lack of build, really. It's been very sort of thrown together last minute between, like, for example, Dom and Dragon Lee anyway. I feel like, I'm sort of looking past those two guys. I'm just looking at Ray and Santos. And if that's the case, then Ray's got to get some revenge on Escobar. That's my sort of opinion on this one. I'm going to go with Ray and Dragon Lee purely because of the fact that Ray hasn't once had his chance to say, well, to had it. Well, he hasn't once got payback on Santos since everything that happened in the last, like, I want to say 5-6 months or so. So yeah, Ray and Dragon Lee to win. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, and I kind of got caught off guard on the build question, but I was excited to see Dragon Lee a part of LWO. I think it helps elevate that faction. Because in my head, I feel like LWO couldn't really hold a candle to LDF because of the talent on LDF. It was much greater on LW than LWO. So I think Dragon Lee being added to that team kind of helps balance that. But again, why aren't we getting that instead of this? But that being said, I think the match will be fun. Any match with Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio are always going to have high spots and that sort of thing. And I think we'll just take the match for what it is, and I think it'll be a good one. And we'll see if they can make any sense of this build and why these teams are here and why Dom is here. I think Dom is the biggest question mark. Why Dom is here? Because he saw his dad again and thought this is the only way I can get on the Mania card.
Yeah, you laugh, but that seems to be the literally the only thing they're hanging on to here, right? I think Graves even mentioned that in the build-up. I think he said that, like, he's seen Rey Mysterio and he's gone, you know what? I'm going to ride off your coattails again, Dad. I'm going to get into a match with you at Mania. So it genuinely does seem to be the only way that they're making this seem to be plausible, considering the lack of build from his perspective. So, yeah, like you said, they're a lot of fun. This should be a good match, and a lot of high-paced energy regarding this one. So yeah, it could be a good spectacle for WrestleMania. But yeah, let's see what happens. Go from there. So, one tag team match to another. and one that has huge implications for Night 2 of WrestleMania, and arguably the main event of WrestleMania in total. So you've got, on one side, you've got Seth freaking Rollins and Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, taking on the Tribal Chief, the undisputed Universal Champion, Roman Reigns, as well as the final boss, The Rock. So the stipulations are as follows on this one. If The Rock and Roman Reigns win this tag team match, then the matchup between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes on night 2 will be contested under bloodline rules, meaning that anything happens and, you can just get a complete and utter carnage of a situation where you get, 746 members of the Anoa'i family costing Cody Rhodes the victory at WrestleMania again. Or you look at it on the other side of things. So you've got Cody and Seth. If they win this match, then the night 2 match between Roman and Cody will instead become just a regular one-on-one contest with no interference whatsoever from anybody. So everyone's barred from ringside. It's just the two of them. It's a one-on-one with nothing else going down. I am assuming that also means without Paul Heyman. But I think, if I remember rightly, they did address that a few weeks ago. I think they said that Paul would be in attendance. So I don't know if that's for a meeting between the two of them. I could be getting things mixed up there. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I in terms of your in-ring talent, so your Solos, your Rock, your Jimmys, your Jays, your whatever, none of those will be present if Seth and Cody win. So it would just be a completely different dynamic for what we were used to with Roman Reigns. So let's talk about this matchup then. This is huge. This is big, right? This impacts a massive match on night 2. But let's look past that at the moment. Well, not look past it, but let's not look that far yet. If we talk about this tag team matchup as it is, Cody would actually request that he would get a match against The Rock in a one-on-one opportunity. And The Rock would say, no, we ain't going to do it like that. If you want a match against me, boy, you're going to have to go up against me and Roman at the same time. And you can call your little walking clown emoji friend to come along with you to get involved as well. And that would set up this match because obviously they ain't going to say no. Then obviously the stipulations would come in, that conversation would go on, and yada, yada. The build for this one, I think, has been really, really good because you've had The Rock going into this fantastic heel persona, and I say fantastic, but I genuinely do believe that. I'm not just trying to troll here. I think he's been great in the build-up. I think it's been refreshing to see that again. He's sort of going back to his Hollywood Rock days almost with they had that concert appearance a few weeks ago on SmackDown. That was a nice little touch. And I just think The Rock's doing really, really well in that sort of that final boss heel against the biggest babyface, Cody Rhodes at this point. I think that's worked so well. I think it's been tremendous so far. Then obviously you've got Roman, and I'd like to talk. This is where the conversation goes into Reigns. So the first question is, do you think that The Rock is overshadowing Roman Reigns here? Do you think that he's actually stepping above the Tribal Chief, the undisputed Universal Champion? Do you think that the final boss is making it a bit more about himself and maybe not so much about Roman Reigns?
To answer your question, absolutely. But that's just kind of the persona of The Rock, right? No one's ever going to be above him. He is the story. And with this build, I don't think you can really disagree with that. I feel like we've seen more Rock and Cody than we have Roman and Cody. That kind of ties into an overall thinking of how this match and then match tomorrow will go. But for this match alone, I don't think you could, at least in recent memory, come up with a better build to a match. Maybe arguably the tag matches last year for Mania was a pretty good build as well. This one, to me, I think edges that one slightly. But yeah, I don't think I could build it better myself. I can't really point to any fault in this build-up, other than maybe it's focused on The Rock and Cody a little more, being that Roman and Cody are going for the title the next night. But yeah, this has been so much fun to watch, and as The Rock says, he has made wrestling cool again, and I think there probably are a lot of casual fans that have tuned back in to see what he's up to. And to your comment on his heel work and persona, I do think at the beginning of his return, he was a bit rusty on the mic. He kind of fumbled here and there, which today's day and age, you wouldn't, bat an eye at that. But to the arguably one of the greatest promos ever, kind of caught you off guard. I think he might have been a little rusty at first, but any thoughts about him being rusty have clearly been shaken off to this point. And I think every time he gets in the ring and cuts a promo, we know it's going to be something memorable.
Yeah, the standards are unbelievably high when you talk about The Rock and like his mic work. You just expect greatness all the time. So for him to have gone that like little bit of like a rusty start, as you said, I can agree with that. I thought he was a little bit shaky at first, but yeah, absolutely, cobwebs are gone, shaking off all the rust, and it's just been it's just been wonderful to watch. It's just been so entertaining. And I think when you talk about the four guys in this one and Roman being potentially overshadowed, I don't think anyone really gets overshadowed more so than Seth Rollins in this one. Because, I mean, Seth's got his own business to deal with. It's no disrespect to him personally, but like he's got Drew McIntyre. So he has his match as well. He's got a night 2 match anyway. So I think in the greatest of respect to Seth Rollins here, he's just the fourth guy involved, and like he's the one that wants to step up with Cody. So I get it. I understand the dynamic, but like I feel like Drew McIntyre's laughing, right? Like there's no better situation for Drew. We'll talk about that on a much bigger conversation when we do our night 2 predictions video. But yeah, I just think that Seth, don't get me wrong, he's got his priorities in check. He wants to take it to the bloodline. I get it. He's a valiant hero, and he wants to step up with Cody. He wants to get the job done. He wants to put an end to the bloodline, which he's been working towards for a long time now. And he doesn't like what his brother in Roman Reigns is doing. And I get it. It makes sense. But I think when you do look at it like that, you've got Roman and Cody. You've got Cody and Rock. You've got who have you got with Seth in this one? Cody and Seth? Yeah, it's tag team partner. All right, fair, but that's gonna happen. I don't know. I just think that Seth, yeah, he definitely seems like the odd one out here, and I like Seth. I think he's got one of the outstanding legacies in recent times in the company. Like former multi-time champion or whatever, still current world heavyweight champion right now, and for him to be in that position of his legacy and to be sort of like that bit part in the matchup, that's quite crazy for me to think about. And yeah, I think we sort of like go from here and we think, well, he's got a much bigger thing for himself tomorrow, but he's making this, like perhaps a bit bigger than that as well. So what does get your sort of thoughts regarding Seth in this one? Has he felt vital to this, or is he just, like I said, has he felt almost like he's just Cody's mate?
Yeah, and the fact that they even mentioned his name and Rock being Rock overshadowing Roman, I think clearly Seth is at the bottom of the list of key players. I don't want to say key players, I guess, but roles of importance, I guess, because this is his second match as well. Cody has 2 matches, but his next one is for the title as well, and implications from this match directly affect his other one. Whereas it doesn't matter at all whether Seth wins or loses this match. It has 0 bearing on his other match, outside of the fact that he will then have another match, which obviously should weigh in. But at least in this case, Roman has another match as well in his bout with Cody tomorrow or the next day, whereas Drew's going to be fresh as a daisy. And again, as you mentioned too, we'll get into that a little more later. But yeah, this kind of goes back to the original build of this entire thing. They announced The Rock versus Roman. Was that the end goal? I think clearly it was, because this particular match, when you think about that aspect of it, doesn't make a ton of sense, because why Seth and Cody had this huge feud and hate each other, and then all of a sudden Seth's like, hey, I'll be on your team. I think I still scratch my head at that one a little bit. But anyways, here we are, and I think the build has been great. I just think it doesn't make a ton of sense for Seth to be in here, but that's the story they went with, and I think potentially you could have that playing or the relationship between the two teams coming into play. Um, Particularly, I think the Rock and Roman's relationship could come into play um, in the outcome. But without going that far yet, um, who are you thinking will win this match?
Well, that's the money question, isn't it? That's the money question that I've been going back and forth on for so damn long now. Because you talk about the implications for the following night, and obviously that undisputed Universal Championship match, and you can go one of two very different ways. I go back and forth with this one, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, why bring back the final boss and have him lose at WrestleMania? I'm not too certain that they would do that. So because of that logic, I'm gonna go with Roman and Rock winning this tag team match on night one, and then we get Bloodline rules for the night two match between Roman and Cody. That's what I'm going with, and that's that's what I'm going to stick with now. So there you go. That's my opinion, and you can lock that in as far as I'm aware. What about you? What are your thoughts regarding this one?
Yes, I agree, but I don't think it's solely the fact that Rock's coming back is why he's going to win. Because if they had went the route of the Rock versus Roman, like they originally had, I think, planned, I don't think the Rock's winning that. I don't think he has a chance in hell in winning that match. But I think because outside of just a tag match, and I say just a tag match, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. There's really no, repercussions on the overall grand scheme of things. No one's getting a title. No one's losing a title. It is a tag match to help determine, what will take place the next night. So because of that, I basically head down the same thought process as you. And I think that The Rock isn't going to lose. We want to build him up that he potentially has more matches down the line. I think that's why I think that The Rock and Roman will win. But another thought I had on if The Rock and Roman were not to win in my decision-making process for this, and then they decide that there's no bloodline, or they don't get the bloodline rules for tomorrow's match, how exactly do they enforce that? So if Roman and Rock weren't to lose, and the next night we have a straight one-on-one match, I feel like even though that's the case, if the ref just misses something or gets knocked out or something, is that still something that could come into play? Because if they can't enforce it, and it seems silly, but at the end of the day, we've seen it 100 times that the bloodline's involved, regardless of what kind of rules are set in place. And so for that reason, too, I just feel like it makes most sense to have the bloodline rules, because I feel like even if they were to lose this match, that they would still get the bloodline rules anyways. I think that makes sense in my head. But I think, yeah, I just think that Cody and Seth losing here, it doesn't really affect them as much as it would if the Rock and Roman were to lose.
Yeah, so many good points there, and I think to answer that, that I don't know if it was a rhetorical question, but the thought process that you went down a moment ago, I think, yeah, if the ref is down, if there's a bit of a blind spot, someone gets involved for almost like half a second, couple of moments, whatever. I think what can you do? You can't really stop that. The referee hasn't seen it, and at the end of the day, that's all it is. So it's not going to take a long time to get that situation done. So perhaps, yeah, I think it is hard to enforce. So I think the bloodline rules side of things makes a lot more sense. You can sort of get that more, you can have the more freedom with it, can't you? Anybody and everyone can get involved. We can get Mama Rose coming down here to whoop some ass, and we can get we can get the whole freaking Anoa'i family down to even the score. It can go crazy, but with that one-on-one, it's so hard to enforce. I don't think that's going to be something that's going to be manageable. And yeah, I think you made a great point with that. So yeah, I don't think it'd be enforced whatsoever. So I think it all comes down to Seth and Cody losing. But then again, like, I think when you ask that, who takes the pin for their team? Because you can't have Cody getting pinned before his big match, can you? Realistically, that's not going to happen. So you have to have Seth get pinned before his World Championship match. And obviously, you look at his match then against Drew. That's another kettle of fish. But yeah, it's a very odd dynamic to think about. But yeah, some very good points to come from this one, though. It's a very interesting matchup. So yeah, very, very heavy weighing on the second match. But I'm excited for it, though. It should be a lot of fun. I'm definitely very, very keen. And I think that, there's so many different ways this one could end. And I'm really, really excited about the prospects leading into night 2. So it should be a lot of fun. It should be really good.
Yeah, and I think I haven't alluded to it yet, but I think the crowd, and being Philadelphia, one of the best crowds in the U.S. as far as I'm concerned, I think will really come into play here. And I think, especially when it comes to The Rock and Roman, who I think are both really good at playing with the crowd. The Rock especially, I think, will make this main event. I think a very, very noteworthy one, in that we won't forget this one anytime soon. But as for who would take the pen, I think, without getting too much into the night 2 predictions, I think Seth's in for a bad weekend. So
noted, noted, and agree. But yeah, there you have it then. So that is the entirety of the first night of WrestleMania discussed there between myself and Nick. And I think when you talk about the dynamics for the entire show, you've got some very, very, very big ifs and buts that could go throughout it. But I think it's got a great looking first night to it. I mean, there are a couple of matches there that you think maybe a little bit here and there that are a bit sort of rushed with the build, which is crazy considering how long the build they had. But, it is what it is. That's what happened. I think if you look from top to bottom, it is a nice looking card for night 1. So I think we're in for a treat. That Philly crowd, as you mentioned a moment ago, Nick, should be tremendous. And yeah, looking forward to seeing if they can really bring that energy, bring that hype, and give these guys on the card what they're looking for. But yeah, definitely awesome looking first night. So just want to quickly double check, make sure there's anything that we haven't alluded to already. Before we do pass this off, is there anything that we've missed and not discussed?
Yeah, no, I can't really think of anything. Yeah, I think night 1 looks great, and aside from the few builds that were a bit shaky or questionable or rushed, whatever you want to use, whichever term you want to use to describe those, I think as far as just on paper, none of these matches I look at and kind of go, not really looking forward to that one. I think all of these matches have potential, and we can allude to it on the second video. But I think it'll be interesting to see which night ends up holding our attention more before and after. It'll be fun to compare those.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in for one hell of a weekend. So this is essentially installment part 2 for WWE, right? Well, actually, no, it's not really. This is really part 1, 2, 3, 4, I suppose you could say, right? Because you got the Friday Night SmackDown, you got Hall of Fame, you got NXT, Sound and Deliver, then you got night 1 WrestleMania, night 2 WrestleMania. So you got like 5 almost event type things in the space of 3 nights. So it's going to be crazy. There's a lot of wrestling, but it should be a hell of a weekend. And this is going to be, the first of the WrestleMania action. So yeah, I mean, there you go, guys. That's our predictions for night 1 of WrestleMania with myself and Nick from the Push, and we will be back basically immediately after this with our night 2 predictions and discussion. So cheers, buddy. Thanks for coming along with me today once again. Appreciate you as always, and thanks for everybody for coming into here and listening to what we have to say. Waffling on a little bit. This is a long video to get through, but I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next one. This has been The Push with Nick and KP, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, everybody, and bye-bye.